Hey guys, Peter here to do an EP review. Today I'm here to tell you all about the latest from Eye of the Destroyer, The Wolf You Feed, out October 9th as a self-release. It has 5 tracks, 18 minutes in length, and this is the band's 6th EP and the follow-up to their full-length album, Baptized in Pain. Now, I've never heard of the guys before up until now, and that is on me, but that is going to change because this EP slaps across all different parameters. All 5 songs are so dynamic, so interesting, great construction, great delivery, the soundscape, the vocals, everything around them just has so much quality built into it. And then when you look at the overall structure of this release, it's magnificent. There's growth, the tracks morph, and they transport you from song to song because you just don't know what you're going to get around the corner. So you constantly engage with the listening experience. And I love how it starts off with more of a deathcore presence as far as the soundscape and even vocals are concerned. And then you start to see things changing. You start to see the tracks morphing within themselves. And from track to track, you see other influences coming in, like hardcore and crossover thrash. And by the time you get to the last track, you have a much different song than the one you started off with. So this is a release that has 5 different tracks, but they're all interconnected because they all transport some elements from one into the other, and it allows to give the listener that growth, that sense of traveling, that sense of progression from the first all the way to the last. The lyrics are very personal. You can tell that in how they're delivered, in the content of the lyrics itself, and then the emotional outburst that it gives to the vocals, and then that ties into the overall intensity and aggression that the tracks have built into them musically. So all of these parameters are coming in a perfect place with a perfect balance, and I love it. It feels a lot more rugged, it feels a lot raw, it almost feels like I'm reading pages of a diary. Each song is a different entry into that diary, so depending on what the content of the lyrics and of the song are, you're going to get a different outburst of energy, of aggression, of emotion, both musically and vocally. Overall, this is magnificent. Magnificent EP. There's absolutely nothing that you can point your finger at that you could say that they could have done this better or this could have been done differently. I love the overall structure, I love the growth, I love the morphing within the songs and from track to track. I love the different influences that they incorporated into that deathcore sound that allows the record to overall be a lot more dynamic and not be just one-dimensional. Very important to me. Now, talking about the tracks, let's start off with the opener, Reversed. Brutal track, both vocally and musically. It's driven, it's methodic, but really pushes itself forward at a nice pace. It changes directions as the song progresses. It's really not linear from that perspective. It really allows the song to gain intensity, to gain heaviness, and to move it around and presented it in different ways, not always presenting it with the same formula. The vocals have a huge role on how brutal this track sounds because they add to that brutality. They're really the perfect partner in how everything else comes together and allows the song to feel a lot stronger, a lot bigger. The perfect opening salvo for this EP. Next, Scapegoat. Similar traits to Reversed. You start to see a lot of the things that you saw in the opening track move into the second track on this EP, and so there's a lot of the same elements at place. Perhaps a little bit more methodic on this one. Still heavy, but a little bit more methodic. It really feels like it's dragging a body through mud. It has that sense of slow, heavy progression. And then squeezed in between that, you get a lot of brutality that really jolts the track. It really gives a different look to the song, and it really almost breaks the track. But you need that because otherwise the song would be so methodic that it would become almost overbearing. So I really love those jolts of energy that allow everything else to seem even more brutal, even heavier, and it really defines the overall approach that this track has, both musically and vocally. Great job blending those elements, those two different approaches, those two different capacities of showing you aggression and heaviness, but just in a different lens. Next, Weight of the World. Now you start to see what you had before and morph into a more hardcore driven sound. To me, this track has that New York City hardcore underline into how it comes across both musically and vocally. One of my favorite, if not my favorite track on this album. Really dynamic, really fluid, a lot of aggression, but not destructive. It's a track that has intensity, it has aggression specifically coming from the guitars and drums. The vocals help it as well, but it's a lot easier to digest. It's a song that has a more palpable melody to it, if you will. Not melodic, but it has a palpable melody to it. The drums play a huge role in this track. They really give the song the bass line that it needs in order to move at the pace that it does and to have the overall sound experience that it has. The guitar riffs are phenomenal on this track. They really play well with the sound from the drums, and then when you add the vocals to it, it becomes a trifecta of power, aggression, and heaviness, all three coming together to give you exactly the same thing at the exact same time. Next, Colder, heavy track. It really allows the guitars to drive the sound and to drive the track itself. The vocals offer a different approach than what we got up until this point. There's still some similarities, but I felt the vocals on this track were a little bit different. They really had something else in store for us. The song is very hooky, is very catchy, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a Propane vibe to it, specifically The Truth Hurts with that album, more so from a vocal perspective. But when you look even in how the song is constructed and how it sounds, there's some traces of Propane on this track. Last but not least, Weekend Thoughts. Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Weight of the World is not my favorite song. Maybe this one is my favorite song, because this is an absolute incredible closing track for this EP. The slow, menacing opening has a little bit of a Slayer-esque vibe to it, and how it sounds and how it comes across. After that, the song starts to become very destructive, almost as if Slayer and Hatebreed had a love child. That's pretty much how this song then becomes. It becomes a merger of those two worlds, very dynamic, a song that's driven once again by the guitars and drums, creating a very heavy and powerful underlying sound that really allows the vocals to come on top of it and then drive the song to where it needs to go. In between that, you still have some deathcore elements playing a role in how the overall song is constructed and how it's delivered, but that allows the song to be very dynamic, very fluid, give you the ups and downs that are necessary, and not allow this song to sound like Weight of the World, because there's a lot of similarities between those two tracks, and maybe that's why both of them are my favorites. So I love the fact that they included some deathcore elements into a song that didn't feel like it was even going to have them up until that point, but by having them, it changes the dynamic of the track, it changes how it feels, it changes how it sounds. This is it, guys. Eye of the Destroyer, The Wolf You Feed, once again out October 9th as self-release. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.